Could you tell us where, how all it started? I mean, let's imagine your very first time on stage. Where are we? How old are you? Were you nervous? What are you playing?
The first time I remember being on stage was in a, oh, by the way, to some people in the press, and Bruna, who is here somewhere, has been translating, she's here, she's translating into it, and basically making everything I say sound 5 times as intelligent and beautiful in Italian. So thank you, Bruna. She's an artist. And really an interpretive artist, and with the ability, like, I don't know if the students in the audience know about Sanford Meisner, who was an acting teacher in New York City. And one of the techniques that he espoused, which I learned when I was at drama school, was that one person, one actor would feed the lines to another, and who would just simply repeat. And the idea was that you would remove the layer, a cognitive load of trying to remember your lines or think about what to say, and you would simply say the line as it was fed to you and connect with your scene partner. And Bruna kind of does the opposite of this. She not only remembers everything that's being said to her, but connects fully with the person she's speaking to and animates it. And that, to me, is an actor who can mean what they say and imbue it with energy and life when they didn't write the words, somebody else did. And so I salute you, Bruna. Thank you. Now, on to your question. I remember being in a play. So in the UK, everyone has heard of international scouting, but the mini form of that is the Cub Scouts, and I was a Cub Scout, and we did a play called Bon Voyage, written by our Scoutmaster. And I had one line. I had to come on, I had to say something about the diamonds, and I had to leave the stage. And I don't remember being nervous. We had one performance. I think I said the line right. And that was probably my last opportunity to act until maybe 4 years later. I was Priam in a musical that one of my teachers wrote called Troy. And after that, I didn't act for maybe 10 years. And then that was 10 years filled with live role-playing, which is essentially acting for no audience, living in our imaginations, playing characters that we invented each week, creating or characters that were much loved that we would play every week, and creating incredibly complex stories in worlds not dissimilar to Night of the Seven Kingdoms, I have to say, often. The world would vary, but, and living in character. And so when I came to do a play by accident at university, it was just like breathing. I knew what that was. And so it's, yeah.
And some years later came the first Tony Award and then Laurence Olivier, so I can say it was a good start. So we will be back on the topic of live role-playing, but I once read in an article that the strength of so many British actors like you comes from your great theatrical tradition, the ability to confront the expectation of the audience that it's sitting there right now, like now, no? So I was wondering, being exposed to the judgment of fans while working on big productions like Night of the Seven Kingdoms or The Crown or Harry Potter means being open to confront to fan expectations. So did your theater experience help you to face it in any way?
It's an interesting question because I'm just thinking about your premise, and I mean, I guess I'm hearing you say that something about training in the theatre means that you get an experience of sitting with a kind of the glare of attention that's in the room with you. Is that what you mean? And the thing about filmmaking is you don't get that glare. So actually, I'll take the second part of your question in a minute, because there is something unique about taking a property like Harry Potter or George R.R. Martin's novels, or I've done several other novel adaptations that are very well loved, and there is a certain responsibility you have to the audience, of course, and that is a certain kind of pressure. But I think I would say that actually in filmmaking, the biggest problem for me is the absence of that glare, because as a theatre actor in my belly, I guess what I like about acting is being looked at and being seen, and not because I'm an exhibitionist. My wife will tell you whether that's true or not, but because I want to be seen and noticed and seen on a deep level, and somehow up on a stage. I mean, this is, except that everybody's very welcoming, this context is mortifying to me, to appear as myself. Whereas, I was saying this to Bob earlier on, we both agreed that there's something about the shield that a mask gives you. I think Oscar Wilde said, if you give a man a mask, he'll tell you the truth. And that's definitely true for me. When I appear through a character, I feel I can offer myself so fully. So, and I want to do that in the room with people. And when you're doing that on camera, you can have that with the camera when you learn how to do that. But there's all these other people around, and it doesn't matter whether they're interested in you or not. And they very often are not. And their job is to pay attention to the bottle of water, or are we on time, or what's the lighting doing? But you lack that glare, that focus of attention, that in a theatre, any actor worth their salt knows in their guts whether it's going well, moment to moment. You can feel it, because we're human beings and we feel it. It's kinesthetic, right? And you don't have that on a film set. So you have to develop some other way of relating. The only eye that matters is the camera, or the cameras. But you don't get that sort of sixth sense. And so I think that can be confusing for theatre actors coming to filmmaking. And you have to relearn that. And then the second part of the question is basically, I think, is it difficult to take the responsibility of a much loved property? Yeah, but I think you just have to. I mean, it's not like it's a privilege doing this work, so you can't kind of.
The thing is that you have the reactions that you have it by social media. It's not the same.
I'm not on social media anymore.
Good. So let's talk about your career, starting from a chronological point of view. So let's start from the acclaimed Netflix TV show The Crown. Not everyone knows that you hold a rather unique record. You're the only actor to have played two different characters in The Crown, not only Tony Blair, but also the journalist Robin Day. How did that happen?
I have a friend who said, hang on a minute, that's not true. I played two characters in The Crown. Wonderful actor called Rich Golding, who's even more transformative than me, because no one in the press noticed that. But so sorry, Rich. Well, simply, in series 2, I was offered this part. It was one scene, maybe two scenes, and I said yes. I needed the money, but also Robin Day. As it happens, they couldn't have known this. Was a very great friend of my grandfather, who was also a journalist, and he and Robin Day would, funnily enough, role play their great interviews. They would sit with one another, and so the story that came down to me was that Robin Day gave his Margaret Thatcher in a mock interview. My granddad was going to interview Thatcher, and so Robin Day gave his Thatcher in order to warm my granddad up for this interview. Anyway, when my grandfather passed away in 1991, I was 13, I think it was 1990 actually. I was 13 and I went to the church to hear the eulogies. Robin Day gave the eulogy, and he made this speech which passed over my head at the time. Many years later, I was coming to research the role for the Crown, and I found this speech in a book of his. He was a great after-dinner speaker, and somebody had published all his speeches, and they published this eulogy, and I was like, oh, that's my granddad. And I read the speech again, and in it, he makes a joke about my granddad's service in the war behind enemy lines, and he makes some kind of oblique reference implying he was a spy. Now, as far as I know, my granddad was a quartermaster sergeant handing out uniforms in Catterick Camp in North Yorkshire. But who knows? Maybe, and they're both dead now, so you can't ask them. And so it led to a story. And then, you know, I guess I.
So just a curiosity, your grandfather was a political journalist. Your father was a political journalist too.
Yeah, and my great-grandfather also. So there was a moment in time in 1947 when 3 generations of Carvels were all in the lobby of the House of Commons, where the MPs gather in Parliament before taking a vote. And it's the only place in Parliament where 2 things are allowed to happen. One is that the press are allowed to kind of go right up to the members and buttonhole them. And the other thing is that on budget day, sorry, have we got time for this story? On budget day, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, who's going to give the budget, is allowed to take an alcoholic drink to the podium to fortify them while they give this long speech lasting several hours about the economic future of the country. And in 1947, my dad was a baby. Quite how he came to be in the lobby, I don't know. My granddad was a young reporter, and my great-granddad was an older reporter. And he was great friends with the Chancellor by chance. And another journalist came and said, hey, John, go and get some colour for my column. Go and ask him what his drink's going to be, this alcoholic drink that he's going to take. So he went up to the Chancellor of the day, Hugh Dalton, and he said, so, Hugh was a Scottish gentleman, my great-grandfather. He said, so, Hugh, what's it to be? And Dalton leaked him the budget. He told him, he said, well, it's going to be 2 pence on beer and a penny on whiskey and maybe a couple of pence on cigarettes. Thinking in this day, this was 1947, he thought, well, they'll phone the copy through and it takes time, and the hot metal presses have to print the paper, and maybe tomorrow morning my friend will have a scoop. Anyway, they ran to the phones, they phoned it through, and they both worked for evening papers. And through the ingenuity of the men and women who printed the paper, they got the paper onto the streets. And in theory, you could have gone and bought a paper at Fenchurch Street Station before he'd finished giving the speech. And now this would never happen today. He resigned. It was a scandal, and he resigned. And apparently, this is sad, both men died of a broken heart. So that's my story about it.
Oh. Okay, back to
acting.
Back to acting. Speaking about Tony Blair, Marco mentioned it. He's one of those public figures everyone thinks they know. So how did you find your own way through the Carter?
I went through a phase where I didn't act without false teeth. And I'll say that again. I went through a phase where I didn't act without false teeth. It's true. I basically discovered that there's a guy in Boreham Wood who is like he used to be a dentist, and was a dental technician. You know, and you go in and they put that thing in your mouth. And it's like sort of kind of cold mud. They keep still, and they make a dental impression. Anyway, this guy makes dentures, and you can have so much fun. Actors in the audience, I tell you, get yourself a pair of false teeth. It's the best thing. Like I dress up for a living, so that's why I like to play characters. Really, it's what gets me out of bed. And anyway, I discovered that you could do teeth basically, and Tony Blair has kinky teeth. So honestly, I did a lot of work on the teeth with Chris Lyons, The other thing about having teeth, being serious for a moment, is that you can't put dentures in without it changing your diction. Apart from anything else, in order to be even on television, where Bob will tell you no actor today can speak clearly on the television, it's driving you mad and it's driving all of us mad, but you don't have to now. The microphones are so good. But if you've got these dentures in, you really have to work to overcome it. And that's really helpful because it reminds you to do a whole load of work that you learned in drama school that you kind of just go, I don't need to do that anymore, and I'm away. And actually, it's really helpful to think about where the sound is in the body, and so I find that helpful. And I quite like. I'm not really a mimic as such, but I've played a lot of real people, and I like the process of the research that goes with that when there's such a rich body of work to draw on. Because now this sounds a bit grand, but I think my theory that I've developed about what happens to me, at any rate, when that happens, is you do all this work, whether it's a real person or an imagined character. You try on the walk, like, if you're lucky enough to have rehearsal, if it's a play, say, part of what you're doing is just spending time in the character's body, and you're trying on business and you're working out a staging or whatever, but really what you're doing is like figuring out what it feels like to be that person. And that's not the method. It's not intellectual, and it's not kind of it's not mystical. It's just it's physical. It's like if you were going to run a marathon, you run a marathon before the day of the marathon, right? You build up to it, but like the day before you run 23 miles or whatever, and then maybe on the day you run 26.2 miles. But you don't do it from cold. And the same is true in filmmaking, you don't really get that process. There's never rehearsal really to meaningfully these days, or at least not physical rehearsal. I've done 2 projects where we actually rehearsed the scene like a play. And so you don't get to spend time in the body of the character. So you have to find some other kind of process where your inner body is going to change. And for me, a lot of that is the work that's done with the makeup designer and the costume designer, because you're physically present with them because they have to fit you. And if you start to develop a conversation, and you can start to feel like it's like a psychological shift that happens inside your inner body. And anyway, when there's something like with Tony Blair, you can draw on speeches that they've made. You can watch endless hours of footage, and in the process of doing that, by some strange osmosis, you're not going to become them. Clearly, you can never be Tony Blair. The real Tony Blair's out there doing just fine. But you can develop something else that might be interesting to people. And it can be quite specific, as opposed to just turning up and, saying the lines.
So you portrayed a lot of political figures. I must ask now, how was to spend time in Donald Trump's body, because you did it on theater.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is I wasn't in Donald Trump's body, I was in my body, but my body changed inside. My inner body developed some other kind of shape. And, I mean, okay, in that case, we did this play written by an amazing playwright called Mike Bartlett, who wrote, it was part of a sequence of plays, the first King Charles III, which Bob and my wife Sally in different productions both appeared in, which was a future history play, written in the style of a Shakespearean play in iambic pentameter that imagined King Charles acceding to the throne following the death of his mother, which of course, an event we all knew would come to pass, but it had not yet then come to pass. And it took this as the springboard for what might happen if the king took a more political role in public life, as indeed, was his proclivity, and so on and so on and so on. Anyway, he wrote then this play many years later about Donald Trump. What if Trump was to announce his candidacy to be the 47th president, in other words, for a second term as president, which at that stage nobody really expected him to do. Well, not nobody, but it wasn't publicly thought that way. And I digress. It took that device of a Shakespearean play. you know, he amusingly, I suppose, casts Trump first as kind of King Lear, then as Mark Antony, then as, you know, later as a kind of Macbeth figure, and uses various Shakespearean tropes to imagine what might happen. And many, many of these things that he wrote, by the way, have come to pass. I mean, it's chilling in a way, a kind of Cassandra-like prophecy that he made. But I was playing Trump, and I said, okay, of course I want to do it, but how are we going to do the Trump thing? Because by that stage I had a bit of a reputation as a kind of physical transformer, maybe as a kind of character actor. And I thought, well, the play is so good that I don't just want to, I don't really want to do an impression of Donald Trump. And apart from anything else, I'm not sure I can do that. And we started working on it. And for a long time, I was dead set on not, you know, and so Rupert, who directed it, was also really keen on the idea that the performance, this is all going somewhere. In the end, we decided it was when I built up my neck a little with prosthetics and put on the suit and had the wig and the orange face and all of that. It was just too delicious, combined with everything else, I'm going to say, that we couldn't not do it. It was so satisfying. It was good, in other words. It was a theatrical coup. But the only reason it worked, I'm convinced, and it would have worked just as well, was that in the rehearsal room with none of that, because of the change in the inner body and because of something, you know, I was doing a voice and whatever, and Mike had got his cadence of speech, even though he was writing in iambic pentameter, he had his cadence of speech and his mode of thought exactly right, that a few gestures and the audience's imagination created Trump. And in fact, the neck and the hair, you know, actually when you look at it, like the photo looks good, but it's not, that's not where it's at. It's in here and in here and in it, you know? Like, that's why theatre is amazing, because it only happens because people are watching it. It only happens in the imagination of an audience. There's no theatre in, like, a rehearsal that no one's watching is like, you know, it's like, sorry, please stop me before I kill again. But like, an example of this is like, any actors in the audience will know, like, if you've ever done a bring back call after, let's say you're playing a show in repertory, and you go, it doesn't really happen so much anymore, but the National Theatre, for example, in London, they used to play all the shows were in repertory, and you might have 3 weeks off, and then another show would come in, and then you'd come back, and you'd do a bring back call in the afternoon before you did the show in the evening. And you know, there are professionals among us who come to that bring back call and treat it like a dress rehearsal. But very often, it's like people are just marking it. And there's a reason for that. It's not because they're lazy. It's because nobody's watching. And if nobody's watching, there's something you cannot get. And there's no point turning up with a performance. I don't know if actors in the audience would agree, but of course I want to bring myself to that bring back call, but there's kind of no point, because theatre it's in this, isn't it? It's anyway.
Thank you. I would like just quickly to ask you if there's any other political figure you'd be especially interested in playing after Tony Blair, Donald Trump, and you did also, of course, Baylor Targaryen. It's a political in a way. So is there any other one that you would like to?
Yeah, I mean, but I don't know who they are yet. I mean, my favorite thing is I'm not very good at casting myself. Because the fun part is, like, you know, something lands on your desk that either, you know, if you're lucky enough, it's an offer, or actually that's a bit weird. I'll tell you in a minute. But or like maybe you're invited to audition or meet the director or something, and that is the exciting moment. Like, okay, what would I do with this? And if you're doing that to yourself, you're missing a crucial moment, which is like, oh, how would I do this? And in a way, the glare of like, could I do this? Would I be good enough? Would they give me the role? It's lovely, don't get me wrong, and much better for one's life to get offered parts. And I guess I've got to a point now where, by and large, that happens. But it's actually quite destabilizing, because you miss that moment where you have to compete for the role, and something happens to you. If it's something you really want, something really helpful happens to you, where you go, oh, fuck, I want this. And that is a really helpful creative spur. And when somebody offers you the part, you skip that step, and it can be a pity. And then also, like, you're like, okay, well, I guess I'm just going to turn up and do it. And, you know, then they're going to be like, fuck, what's he doing? You know. But the other thing I'll say is that acting is political, regardless of whether it's fiction, true, whatever. And I mean, I went to a university that was very I guess the way I was taught to think as a young person was very political. And so you know, every part you play is political. And if it's not, then I don't know how. And I would, yeah.
Okay. Now, let's change the topic and let's watch a clip from degli that we in Italy watched on Giallo channel and hoping to have it back maybe as soon as possible for the streaming. Can we have the clip starting? Thank you. Such a great TV show, such a great character. Adam is very different from many contemporary TV detectives. He speaks little, observes carefully, thinks deeply, is a poet. How did you go about building this kind of character?
It's really weird seeing it from this angle.
Yes, the angle was not the best.
I have to say, they asked me to choose a clip from Dalglish, and I chose that because I directed these episodes, and I'm really proud of it. And I've watched that little scene. Thank you. I watched that scene so many times, and I like it because, like you say, one of the things that I really liked when this came along was, you know, it's another TV detective, and you know, do we need another one of those? Apparently we do, but it was an opportunity to do something. I mean, he's a great character. He's poetic, deeply sensitive, but also here's an opportunity to do something completely the opposite, really, of what I guess I would call character acting, to strip everything away, and I asked them to take out as many lines of dialogue as possible, so he should say as little as possible. And it should be what I guess I would call cinema acting, whereby you can do, if you have the privilege of the gaze of the camera, which you do when you're the detective Adam Dalglish in a series called Dalglish, you have an amazing power. The less you say, the better, in a way. And you're watching somebody solve a crime, yes, but also you're watching in long form. So the structure of the show is that there's each 2 episodes is a novel adaptation, is a distinct crime, but we string that together into a series. There's no link between the crimes per se, you know. But because you're through the Kuleshov effect, because you're watching this man each week solving a crime, a story is told, and so the less he says, the more he feels, the more an audience can kind of attach to some other story that's like a kind of long gesture, a long movement over the top of it. And I really relished the opportunity to do that. So in a way, the answer is I would just listen with attention. And it was an opportunity to go back to like what I learned about good acting, which, you know, I've heard it and I've done it occasionally, but quite often you forget. It's all about, I had a teacher at drama school who used to say, take the attention off yourself. And the quickest shortcut I know to what I call good acting is to put the attention on your scene partner. Very hard to do because you're being looked at by everybody and you want to be good. But the more you can pay attention to your interlocutor, the more people can't take their eyes off you, actually, because it's alive and it's active, and it's particularly in a theatre when it's all about this act of something that's engaged. And so it was an opportunity to do that, really, and do as little as possible, really. I must listen with intention, I must feel, but like David Mamet said, you know, invent nothing, deny nothing. You can't feel something if you're not feeling it, so you can't act the feeling. You just have access to some kind of deep feeling, and it becomes something really quite beautiful as a result. And the other reason I chose that clip is because I like the music. So I just want to tell you a quick story, which is like basically we had no money to pay for new cues, so I was limited to the library of cues that had already been composed, and this kind of like bank of, you know, generic music cues that All 3 Media, who are the producers, own the rights to. And I was trawling through, and this incredible music, like piece of music that, you know, basically put that on something, and there's something about working with music that appeals to me, that because it's the same gesture of like, you don't, sometimes you can't say what it is, but you can hear it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, makes sense. And critics have really embraced your performance in this TV show. I think that to play Adam, it also needs some time. I mean, to the audience takes time to understand him, no? To follow him, to follow the story, to enter into the world. Do you think that characters like him, slow burn characters, are becoming increasingly rare on this pushing, hyper-performing TV show industry now? It's a privilege, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that you asked that question. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I think it's must be connected to our the like the crunching down of our attention spans because of these things, and you know, but that's okay. You know, it's okay. Like it'll be okay. It'll come back. I've just recently started gardening. We bought a house in the countryside, and so we have a garden for the first time. And I'm killing all these plants by mistake. And I'm really reassured that like all the people I chat to who are proper gardeners, they're like, it's okay, they come back. I think it's true with these trends in storytelling and movie making, and those of us who work in the industry or love the industry, love the form. Yes, we can be depressed by how difficult it is to make a certain kind of film or a television show or trends in whatever it is, but it's okay. It's not going anywhere. Like we've been telling stories a long time. I don't think it's gonna. But yeah, I mean, maybe it's a huge privilege to be able to sit with something like this. Yeah, and I think like the fact is we're doing a 4th season next year, so at the end of this year. So like there is a market, that there are people.
There's space for this.
Yeah, audiences. I think people's attention is rewarded if you give them something good enough to look at, and people will find. I think people will find it eventually.
Yeah, we hope, really. And the story is based on P.D. James' popular series novels. Are you that kind of actor who reads everything from an author before playing one of their character, or for you the script is enough?
Both and. Mainly the script is enough. I mean, the script is the only thing that really matters, because that's what you're delivering. And if it's not in the script, but it was in the novels, I mean, that can be confusing, because yes, you can draw on, I mean, the same is true of documentary material, research material, and so on. Of course, it's all helpful in building an inner body, but if it's in conflict with, like I have been in situations where you've read, particularly when I was younger, like you read something and like, but in the novel, it's not in the script, we're not doing that. So like, it doesn't matter actually that it's in the novel. You stop trying to do that, do the script. Occasionally, you can change the mind of the writers or the producers or whoever. You can bring some of that in. But I also love research, and I love reading, and I find my work is better and richer the more it's been sort of marinated in that stuff, and the more I become role-playing, my hobby when I was a teenager. Everything was so, but we made it all up, but everything was so three-dimensional. We would live in those worlds, and I guess coming from the theatre as well, like by and large, theatre is an abstract medium. It's inherently abstract. We're in the same room as you. You know we are not who we say we are. We're here and you're there, but we're in the story and you're not. Like, we all know that that's a construct, and so there's something inherently abstract about that. And what that invites is for people to engage their imaginations and to like add the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th dimension. There's something confusing about filmmaking, that sometimes it appears to be a photograph of something that really happened, but it's just as abstract actually. And so I feel like the more you can connect to your abstract hinterland, like the more you can kind of awaken the world inside you, it communicates through the screen, and people kind of go, yeah, that's a world, I believe in that. So I like reading stuff around it, but it's not the only game in town.
Speaking about reading, novels, and imagination, let's watch and discuss now another clip from a TV show people here may know, A Night of the Seven Kingdom from HBO Max. Can we have the clip?
I do not need to be reminded of my son's failings. He can change. He will change, gods be damned.
I'll swear I'll see him dead. You.
Who are you? What do you mean by spying on us? Show yourself.
My lords, I do apologize for my interruption. I have asked Sir Manfred Dondarrion to vouch for me so that I might enter the lists, but he has refused to do so.
Who? What the fuck is going on?
We are the intruders here, brother. Come closer, sir.
And others too. You see, they say they know not Sir Erlen of Pennytree, but he served them. I swear it. I have his sword and shield.
Sword and shield do not make a knight. Unless you have better proof to support what you say, some writing or...
Do you remember him, Your Grace? It was many years ago. You may have forgotten.
Sir Erlen of Pennytree. He never won a tourney that I know. But he never shamed himself either.
Yes, sir. I mean, no, he didn't.
He overthrew Lord Stokeworth in the melee at King's Landing. And years before, he unhorsed the Grey Lion himself.
He told me of that many a time.
Then you will recall the Grey Lion's true name. I have no doubt.
Sir Daemon Lannister. The Grey Lion. He's Lord of Casterly Rock now.
So he is. And enters the lists upon the morrow.
How can you possibly remember some fucking hedge knight who chanced to unhorse Daemon Lannister 16 years ago?
I make it a practice to learn all I can of my foes.
And why would you deign to joust with a hedge knight?
It was many years past at Storm's End. Lord Baratheon held a hasty salute to celebrate the birth of grandson. The lots made Sir Arlen my opponent in the first tilt. We broke 4 lances before I finally unhorsed him.
It was 7. Believe.
Tales grow in the telling, I know. Do not think ill of your old master, but it was 4 lances only, I fear.
As you say, Your Grace, it was 4. I do apologize. The old man, Sir Erlen, he used to say that I was thick as a castle wall and slow as an oryx.
No harm was done, sir. Rise.
You gave him back his horse and armor and took no ransom. Sir Erlen often told me that you were the soul of chivalry, and that one day the 7 kingdoms would be safe in your hands.
Not for many years yet, I pray.
No, I did not mean that the king should...
You wish to enter the lists, is that it?
Yes.
The decision rests with the master of the games, but I see no reason to deny you.
As you say, my lord.
Your Grace,
Very well, sir. You are grateful. Now, fuck off.
You must forgive my brother, sir. His sons went astray on the way here, and he fears for them.
I trust they will not be found dead.
Sir, you are not of Sir Arlen's blood.
No, I am not.
By law, only a true-born son is entitled to inherit a knight's arms. You must needs find a new device, sir. A sigil of your own.
I will. Thank you again, Your Grace. I will fight bravely. You'll see.
I love that sequence. I love that. Why did you choose that?
I mean, I find it very difficult to, like, you asked me to choose a couple of scenes to show, and
That's so sweet.
you know, this is the thing that I guess most people know now that I've done. It's very odd because the one thing I'm most proud of is I suppose not that I want to hide myself, but that I don't think you could string. I mean, I guess you have very legibly strung a line between that. There is a certain thematic link, I guess you could draw between things that I've ended up doing, often with the politics and playing real people and so on. And I guess but basically, if you put all the characters in a gallery together, I don't think anyone would go, that was the same actor. And I'm so proud of that. But, you know, like, then things happen which are slightly more high profile and look a bit more like this. And I guess I'm trying to lean into that in a way, because you can't just keep on painting your face and playing new characters. So I was trying to be a bit less of a turn. Does that? I don't know if you can translate that, Bruna. A turn is like a kind of slightly, it's like pejorative, diminutive. It's basically dismissive word for an actor, an over actor. But you know, I'm quite proud of being a turn.
I liked so much this sequence because you can feel the relationship, the alchemy between you and Peter Cleffey. And he was essentially a newcomer when he took the role of Duncan, while you already had a solid acting career behind you. Did that difference in experience help shape the relationship between your two characters, Targaryen and folk people?
I mean, I don't necessarily want to say that Peter lacked experience, because he was certainly incredibly self-assured, and but he's incredibly well cast in the role, which is to say that his yes, he was very easy to act with, very natural, and yes, insofar as I'm sitting back into a kind of complexity and status that is a comfort zone for me, and he was leaning into a kind of charming, bumbling place that I think probably is a comfort zone for him. And so it was, but I don't know, I mean, like, it's much, acting is much easier with other good actors, and I mean, there's an embarrassment of riches on the screen there. Like, everyone in that scene was fantastic, is fantastic. And, you know, it's very easy. It's actually a very easy job most of the time. When people are good, it's really easy. It feels easy, and like, but the difference between it being good and great is tiny quotient, but it's the only thing that matters. And I've been saying, like, now that I'm a father, I mean, you used to burn with passion to get that extra 0.0001%. That's the difference between really good and great. And it was like the only thing that really motivated me was to like, I want to be great, you know. And I can't do that now. I mean, I couldn't do that and be a dad and a husband. And like, you just can't, there is not enough of me left. Now, can you still be great? Maybe you can, because actually, when it goes well, when the lights go green, like, I've realized maybe you don't have to work so hard. Sometimes it's easy, and it should be easy. It doesn't mean you're not doing it well. It doesn't mean you're not working hard, but it doesn't have to be hard, I hope.
Baelor Targaryen is, in a way, another political figure, only this time in armor. Could you tell us something about the physical challenges in maybe doing this character? I mean, you were an armor, you have sword.
Yes, I wore a very heavy suit of armor for most of the shoot, And it was a bit like being a real knight in a real medieval battle who would be winched onto their horse. I could barely mount the horse without assistance. You know, it was really, really heavy. Even though mostly the plate mail is made out of carbon fiber, you know, so it's lighter than steel. But the chain mail's all real chain mail, and the helmets are, you know, and you're kind of buckled into the thing within an inch of your life. And luckily, I've been around the block enough times to know in the costume fitting to ask, how am I going to go to the toilet when I'm wearing this? And they hadn't considered this, and they were very grateful, I think, as was the entire cast, because I was like, guys, you've got to think about this. There needs to be a flap. And both sides, you know. Yeah, so there was that. I mean, I think but that's nothing. Like, the challenges really in filmmaking, I find, are about focus and energy, and knowing how, and like, there's no one way around this, but knowing, like, basically it's like, I think the analogy, I think this is true, working in the theatre is like much more like long distance running, because you know, it's good or bad based on what you make in rehearsal. That's the bit that we all focus on and we spend our time and passion and energy in, and that's where your artistry comes into play, and it's often the most fun, is working out what you're going to present. But the really hard work, I think, is when you've opened the play, you've had the reviews, and then you've still got the audience the next night hasn't seen it yet, nor has the next night, and each performance needs to be as good as or better than the last. And so you have a long distance runner's mentality, because you've got to keep on working to the final performance, and the energy that takes is a specific kind of energy. Whereas in filmmaking, you sit around for a lot of the day waiting for other people to do their work, and then for usually no more than a few minutes at a time, everything counts. And it counts multiple times. That, I think a preconception is that because there are multiple takes, you get more than one go at it. But it doesn't work that way, because you don't know which take they're going to select. You don't know which angle they're going to select. So every take matters. And if you're a good actor and not a wanker, then other people's takes matter too, because they're acting with you. So you have to turn up for that little slice of time each time, but you don't know when it's going to happen, because they're lighting for, it depends on the budget, but they might be lighting for hours. You're sitting in the trailer in your armor, or in the tent in this case. You don't know when. Then they're going to give you, maybe if you're lucky, they give you a courtesy warning, 5 minutes or whatever, but then 5 minutes is usually 20 and you've gone back to sleep. And then you come and then suddenly go, And the director doesn't want to hear, sorry, can I just take a second? They want you to go now. So it's a sprinter's mentality. You have to be ready when the gun goes. You have to go, and you have to go hard, and then you have to rest, and you have to go back to sleep and rest and conserve your energy. So that's the challenge, I think. And, like wearing armor is just fun.
Thank you. I said that I'd be back on the live role-playing topic. As a fellow LARP enthusiast, I have to ask, what kind of character did you usually play?
What did you play?
I was a wizard. And did you ever...
Of course you were. Evil wizard?
What, sorry?
Evil wizard?
No, good.
Lawful evil. Good
no,
wizard.
Good healer, wizard healer.
We shouldn't judge people and put them in these kind of moral categories. I don't believe in my work. I'm like, no, shades of grey, but the LARPers among us will know what we're talking about. I'm not going to explain that. Anyway, go on. Sorry.
No, but anyway, what did this sort of training did something for you? I mean, gave you something just in terms of playing fantasy TV show? Just having a training in live role playing?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I can carry a sword. I spent long hours wearing armor and a sword. And when I was at drama school, actually, I used to love the kind of stage fighting stuff, because I've done it like every weekend since I was 11. And I mean, most kids have fucked around with a plastic sword, but I did a lot of that. And so yeah, and knowing how to stand when you're the sort of thing you actually, like, part of a classical training is, to some extent, knowing how to stand in tights and and robes. I shit you not. I had a teacher who used to say, "In my day, we did everything in tights." And it was probably true. When I was at drama school, you know, less of that. But so we didn't really stand around in tights. But because of standing around in tents, it feels very familiar. And it's to your point about the three-dimensionality of the research and whatever. Yes, it's like flight hours. I have my 10,000 hours in a muddy field in armor, thinking about matters of state. I did a lot of it between the ages of 11 and 21.
Okay, just last question, because we have maybe time for a couple of questions from the audience. Last question, I must ask. I know you cannot answer, but Harry Potter, you're going to be Cornelius Caramel, the worst magic ministry in the story of Harry Potter.
Wow, you call him Cornelius Caramel here.
Yeah.
Wow, we call him Cornelius Fudge. And earlier on someone said that, and I thought they said Cornelius Carvel. I thought I was like a kind of mixture of the two. But Carl, that's a better name, actually.
That's the Italian one. So what have you seen in him? If you can say.
Well, I tell you what I haven't seen is any scripts beyond the ones that we've shot. And in fact, when I accepted the role, I hadn't seen any scripts at all. Is that true? Maybe I think I'd seen 2 episodes, but they didn't feature that character. So, you know, I'm flying blind. Obviously, I have the novels to draw on. So, I have, you know, certain expectations about the role based on who he is in the books. But that doesn't really mean anything. Like, you know, they could write in any direction, and it's quite exciting. I know what story I would like to tell about a man who, in a darkening world with an incomprehensible evil looming, a man in a position of power who has to kind of confront his own deep well of terror and fear and for reasons that, you know, I'll invent and maybe get to put on the screen. It's like this, he's somebody who has been traumatized. Like, so I don't know how much of this I'm allowed to say, but like, look, it's fact, isn't it? Okay, this is me doing detective work on the script. I don't know what the script is yet, so if you read Harry Potter, you think about the story, the kind of prehistory. The Harry Potter fans in the audience will put me right here, but like, as far as I read it, there's been this great war in the past, the first Wizarding War, and we could think of it a bit like the world wars in our version of the world, right? This awful, awful war, which was really awful, and then cut to 1991 when the story starts, and things are kind of returned to normal, and that darkness has apparently gone away, and my character's basically the prime minister of the Wizarding world. And what happens in the course of the stories is that dark force, it turns out, hasn't gone away at all, and it's a question of, do you dare confront that? Do you dare believe that? And are you gonna do something about it? It was to John's point he made. You know, what are you gonna do with that information? Do you dare actually respond to that threat and do something? Are you gonna stand up and do something? And my character is somebody who basically doesn't. He doesn't dare. Or that to me is political. It's urgent, it's relevant. Will that be the strand of the story that's interesting to HBO? I don't know. Please, if you're in the audience, guys, that's the story you should tell.
Thank you, wow. So we have time just for a couple of questions. This is your moment there.
What type of characters do you think we need today on television and cinema to see? Thank you.
Thank you. Well, when one of the reasons I was so moved when I read the scripts for Night of Seven Kingdoms, apart from anything else, the whole scripts arrived, which is very, very rare. Like 6 whole scripts, a story from beginning to end. That moved me to just be treated like an artist who needs to know what the story's going to be before they start. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm being cheeky. The thing that really moved me was in this story that this guy I play, you would expect him not to do as he does. And I'm going to spoil the story for people who haven't seen it, but it's a story about heroism. And in a world that, you know, if you watch the Game of Thrones show, you know it's a hard, cynical world in which your hero probably dies at the end of the chapter. And in this story, people turn up and do the right thing, and I find that inexpressibly moving. And the reason I find it moving is because I think we need it. So I think I'd like more of that. I think I'd like more stories that teach people about champions and about values, about justice and about truth and kind of all these values that, you know, used to be our common bond in the civilized world. And if you don't tell those stories, people forget them. It's not, those civility is not a natural state, unfortunately. I mean, I guess I am hopeful about humanity. I believe very, very deeply in people's inherent goodness. But civilized values are not something to be taken for granted. And so I think we should carry on telling stories that celebrate those. As well as, you know, stories about complex, dark, you know, interesting stuff, which is what we all love to kind of play. And isn't that weird that, like, I mean, it's weird to me. It's not weird to me. It's interesting to me that we're obsessed, like the audiences are obsessed with crime drama. P.D. James, who wrote Dalgleish, had a theory that the reason people again and again go back to detective stories is because they're comforted by the detective that they know will bring order out of chaos. And that's moving, because that speaks to, again, people want to be told it's going to be okay and they want to be held. But there's also something quite macabre about the fact that we're continually looking at these dark stories, images of death and kind of pain. And one of the things P.D. James was very good at was recognizing that murder, she said, is the crime that destroys privacy. That everybody, you know, of course the murdered person has been touched, and of course they're close, but everyone around them, the privacy is stripped away. No one has any privacy, and the damage that can do. Isn't it weird that we want to spend time on a Sunday night, you know, drinking a cup of tea, watching those stories? Except that it's, I think, ultimately about solving something and healing something. That's what kind of takes the curse off it. But there is also some atavistic part of us, I think, that likes to kind of watch pain. And I'm not sure we can't, I don't know. A director I work with quite a lot says he doesn't want to do tragedy anymore. And I know what he means. Well, I think what he means is like that has forever had a powerful draw to human beings to watch stories about pain. But there are some moments where you're like, yeah, enough pain, let's do a comedy.
Thank you. Just last question, you.
Thank you. Do you ever think about what happens the characters you have played when their stories ends?
That's a really interesting question. I wrote someone a letter once about what happens to emails that you delete. I'm kind of
Do they stay with you?
Well,
the emails?
You know, if you draft an email and then you never send it, I mean, obviously it's probably in the cloud somewhere, but, or a letter that you never sent. It's really interesting. Like, there are these liminal spaces, aren't there? And, I mean, I guess they live, okay, so, I believe in an afterlife insofar as I know that people who who are dead now, who I've loved, continue to exist. I remember them and I love them, and that in the same way, I think, you know, a character after the book ends, it doesn't end. You know, like people carry on making something of it, and so it's all, and I guess if you're a Buddhist, you would say it's all one thing anyway. So, do you know what I mean?
Thank you very much, Bertie. Unlikely our time is finished. I want to
Thank you
thank
for
you
listening
so much
to me waffle on.
for your
Thank you.
time, for your generosity and answering us.
It's a great honor to be here. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Really enjoy the festival, enjoy staying here. Thank you.